let's take a quick look at this Growatt Infinity 2000 because this is going to be Growatt's largest power station. It's got all the stuff that you probably are looking for. Let's be honest. You want something that's going to be able to power pretty much anything you plug into it. You want to be able to do a large amount of solar. You know, if you're trying to do off-grid, or I don't know, maybe you're just out on an adventure. Yeah, you need the ability to input a lot of solar. So this is going to do that for you. And you can expand it, as you can see here. So we'll talk about the expansion batteries a little bit later. And then this is really interesting. Yeah, it's kind of weird. They don't actually talk about this a whole lot, but cold startup, minus 22 degrees. So yeah, we will talk about that actually a lot later too, because guess what? This is LFP batteries, 4,000 cycles. And LFP batteries, they don't like cold temperatures. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. And this thing has all the other typical features, all the standard stuff that basically everybody's offering now. But this is it's still a pretty compact portable unit. We're talking around 50 pounds. And yeah, you get 2200 watts continuous. And they're giving you a 30 amp outlet as well. And that's for AC obviously, but there's a little Anderson port here that'll do 30 amps DC in addition. So, a lot of people find that useful, especially if you don't want to have a large inverter running all the time, right? Because a large inverter is going to use a lot of power. So it's always nice to have that. And then they give you actually 6 USB ports as well. So very generous on that. And we do get this new design. I would say it's actually a little bit more conservative, traditional. There's not really too much. It's more generic, really. But hey, I guess a lot of you guys didn't like this kind of huge floating handle that the old Infinity model, the smaller Infinity model had, the 1500 and the 1300. Although, the one thing I would say is, guess what? You're missing out. You're missing out here, actually, because this 1300 was one of my favorite power stations, in fact, because it was only like 40 some pounds, and you could do 800 watts of solar, which is good by itself. But guess what? The big news was 800 watts, I should say. The big news was, it's supposed to be a W. The big news was, for the 6th time here, you could do up to 100 volts. So this was huge. This was actually by far the top of the class, the best in class. If you want to do a lot of solar, yeah, and you want something that's still lightweight and portable, fairly lightweight, and it's 1800 watt inverter, lots of USB-A, USB-C, wireless charger on top, fast charge from the wall. This thing had it all. It's just a lot of people didn't like the handle design. Well, guess what? They've actually shown, I've just found this picture. This picture kind of tells you, I guess, what they were thinking, like what they were going for with this huge floating handle design. This is what they were thinking. Like you could have 2 people, hey, you could have 2 people kind of carry this thing together, in stride. So, and then they did have the small 550 model as well, which actually had a lot of good specs, including this really cool, the light on the front of it, you could infinitely adjust the brightness on it. So it wasn't just high or low like a lot of power stations. You could use the app and literally slide it to what you wanted. The only downside with this model, which was really weird and really bizarre, in fact, I think this is the only power station I've seen where, yes, there was no power brick to charge this thing from the wall. It was just a standard cord, standard cord going into it, but there was no UPS relay in it. So you couldn't actually output AC power while you were charging from the wall. And like I said, there was no EPS, UPS. It didn't have it. So that was just kind of a weird thing. But it did have like good solar for a small power station like this. It still had good solar specs because that was kind of like their trademark. That was like one of the main things you'd want to go for. If you want to go for a power station with good solar specs, yeah, you want to go for Growatt. So you're probably thinking this new larger Infinity 2000 is going to have some really impressive solar specs. Well, it's not quite the case. It's actually not bad. 1,000 watts, yeah, you might say that's pretty good actually, but the problem is, and this is really weird, they've actually dropped the voltage. They reduced it. They made it worse than the old model, the smaller model. So now it's only 60 volts. And this is obviously, it's going to be difficult too. It's not just, the ability to easily hook a bunch of panels up in series, and not worry about going over voltage. No, it's just like literally if you advertise 1,000 watts and then you say it's only 60 volts, it's very difficult to achieve that, isn't it? So now the good news is they do allow up to 20 amps. So, if you can, hey, if you can figure out a way to get your solar panels around, 50, 55, at least 50 volts, right? You need at least 50 volts. If you can figure that out, good luck. Hey, good luck figuring that out. Good luck doing that. But if you can do it, yeah, you can do up to 20 amps, and then you'll be able to hit that 1,000 watts. Now, you might say, well, this is really weird. That why would the smaller model, you know what I mean? Why would the smaller model have 100 volts max, and this new flagship top of the line large model only gets 60 volts? Well, guess what? They've thought of that. They've thought of that, and they actually updated. Well, let's go back to it. Yeah, right here. They've actually updated the 1300 model. It's now the 1200. It's now the 1200, and they basically made it worse. They made this model worse to make this new model look better. So, yeah, it used to have 4 AC outlets. Now, guess what? It's only got 2, and they reduced the solar on it. So remember how I told you that the old 1300 model, you could actually do like 800 watts, 100 volts. Well, guess what? They dropped it down to 600 watts. And you might have noticed this. This is the new color. It's like this dark, it's kind of muted. It's not real saturated. It's not a real tense in color, but it's like a dark green. So yeah, they've updated this model too to have that, which to me, I don't know. I mean, I guess, hey, I guess like I said, if you're doing this, if you're out camping or something like that, it's not a bad color. Again, it's not going to stand out, which is kind of a good thing. I've talked about this a lot in my Jackery videos. You don't want bright orange. You don't want to be saying, you don't want to be like, hey, look at me, like you kind of just want to do your own thing and not be bothered by other people, right? So I don't think it's not the most attractive thing, but it makes sense. It makes sense. And of course, they've always had this green screen. And I do love this screen. They had right here. For whatever reason, I don't know, everybody else is using blue or orange. To me, it's nice with the white and the green. And I like that it's not a full circle like everybody else is doing. It's just something different, something unique. And they have, as you can see here, they got everything you want to know, all the information. They're going to have it on there, including, I love when these companies have these little solar panel icons. If you're doing solar, yeah, you want to see that little icon light up. You don't. Some of these other brands, it's just like DC input. It's like, hey, DC input could be anything. And yes, you can expand this unit as well. As you can see up here, you can only do up to 2 extra batteries. So if you do just 1 extra battery, it's about 4 kilowatt hours. If you do 2, you got 6 kilowatt hours. Now, as you can see here, there's nothing special about this. They're just using those big bulky cables. And, you can see too from the design, it's basically a duplicate of the main unit without the inverter. So the good news here is, though, you can still solar charge these independently, although the extra batteries, they're all limited to 500 watts, which is still good. It's just weird. I don't know why the main unit can do 1,000, and then the extra batteries can only do 500. Because they're all the same battery inside. It's still the 2 kilowatt hour battery inside. So yes, this model does get the UPS. They call it EPS, 20 milliseconds or less. It's not the best spec, but it'll probably work for you if, I don't know. It might work. You know what I mean? It might work. It might not. That's why they're not calling it UPS, in fact. Now, the one thing that you've been waiting for me to talk about is this feature here. They're calling this cold startup, or cold startup support. So this is really cold too, by the way. It's really cold. So they don't talk about this. This is really bizarre, because to me, it kind of looks like this is like a little ribbon that actually all the battery cells are kind of wrapped in, doesn't it? Like a little resistive heater type ribbon. So to me, this looks like it's got battery heating in it. But again, they don't actually say anything about this. But it's got to be, right? Because at this temperature, LFP cells, hey, LFP cells would be pretty much frozen at this temp. In fact, NMC cells don't even work too well at this temperature. So yeah, and they're showing that you're actually charging this at this temperature. So it's got to be some kind of heater, little heater wrap on it. But I wish we had more information on it to kind of confirm that this thing does kind of self-heat, which would be really cool because I don't think there is any other power station on the market this size in this price that has that feature. And again, if you're taking this out camping, some remote area where it gets really cold, that would be a huge selling. It would be a huge selling point. So you can read through this. You can read through this, but there's nothing. Yeah, they don't mention it anywhere in here. So hey, that's a question. That's a question mark for sure. Otherwise, I would say actually this thing, there's nothing special about it other than that. Maybe it has that, self-heating. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. If it does, that would be like really cool. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot that makes this thing stand out. It's got all the typical features. It's got, I don't know, I wish they should have just kept the 100 volt max solar input on it. That would have been a lot better. What else? I mean, the expansion batteries, hey, at least you can do stuff with them. They're not just dead weight like a lot of other brands, like Jackery. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of this. It seems like a pretty solid offering from Growatt. I just don't know if, in fact, it's as good as this model, the 1300. In fact, if you're thinking about getting a power station, like I said, to me, this one's got the best of everything. If you want something that's still pretty compact, pretty portable, it's got a big enough inverter for pretty much anything. It can do a ton of solar. It's got USB. It's just got everything. It's got everything you want. It's like, hey, as long as you're okay with the kind of bizarre handle on this thing. If you're not okay with that, then for sure. That's where you might just appreciate this more generic, basic looking design of this new 2000 model. And then of course you're going to get more capacity. The inverter's a little bit larger. You get all these 30 amp outlets, which is nice. Again, the expansion capability, to me, you want my honest opinion on that? I don't know. To me, it's kind of a pain hooking these things up, and they don't always sync together that well. And you're still paying a lot of money. You're paying a lot of money still. And then, to me, I don't know. To me, I think it always just makes more sense to just skip the extra batteries and just buy another one of the main units, because then you got a duplicate for one, and you got another inverter, you got another everything. You got another everything. So unless you can get the expansion batteries super cheap, of course,